This is a story you will see only on 4.
The News 4 Tucson investigators have learned that some rulings by a local judge are under investigation. Here's News 4 Tucson investigator Matthew Schwartz with the details.
According to sources, rulings made by Tucson Judge Anne Segal are being investigated by the Arizona Attorney General. After 2 sources told us about the investigation, it was confirmed by Doug Kooi, the Pima County Court Administrator. The AG is reviewing Segal's rulings in bad check cases to see if she did not follow sentencing guidelines when imposing punishment.
I was told by the administrator of the courts that you told him you're being investigated.
And I'm telling you, I'm not being investigated.
We approached Judge Anne Segal at the Oro Valley Public Library as she left a public forum. The 61-year-old Justice of the Peace, who makes $101,500 a year, is seeking re-election in a bitter primary on the Northwest Side against attorney Adam Waters, whom she narrowly defeated in 2008.
You're making up news that isn't there. I'm not being. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about.
A day earlier, Judge Segal declined an on-camera interview when we first asked about an investigation, saying she'd talk in September after the primary. In an email to the News 4 Tucson investigators, Court Administrator Doug Kooi wrote, "Judge Segal made me aware that the Attorney General's office is conducting an investigation related to some cases that were heard in her courtroom. She will be meeting with them sometime in August." So although Segal apparently confirmed the investigation to Kooi, she repeatedly told us,
"I know of no investigation, and I am not being investigated. I am not being investigated by the Attorney General's office. My opponent cannot afford to make publicity, cannot afford TV, so this is a good way to get an adverse
But Doug Kooi, who told me this, is the court administrator. He's not your opponent. Why would he tell me this?
I have no idea why he would tell you that.
The day after this, Segal complained to KVOA News Management that our news crew was aggressive towards her. She also said she was meeting with someone in the Attorney General's office this month about bad check cases. Segal said she'd do a sit-down interview with our news director at the station. She postponed the first scheduled interview, citing a family emergency. She said she'd be there a week later and failed to appear. This is not the first time Judge Segal's actions have been questioned, according to the Arizona Commission on Judicial Conduct here in Phoenix.
She has had 4 public reprimands. I'm aware of one other judge that has had 5.
George Reamer is the executive director of the Commission on Judicial Conduct. He says the only judge in Arizona with more reprimands than Segal is in Maricopa County.
4 reprimands is a fairly large number.
In June of 2010, Segal was reprimanded for interfering in her son's speeding ticket case. This followed a scathing letter from the complainant, Justice Court Presiding Judge Maria Felix, to the Commission on Judicial Conduct. Felix wrote that Segal told her she was only trying to help her son out by lifting his license suspension. Felix said, "I told her as clearly as I could that this was unacceptable and most of all unethical of her for taking any action in her son's case." Felix wrote that Segal replied, "Well, report me." Felix also wrote, "I concluded that her continued actions were of grave ethical concern." In November 2010, Segal was reprimanded for using a fake name while criticizing Waters on a news website. In December 2012, reprimanded after she self-reported that she represented herself and her husband in a case. Full-time judges are not permitted to represent anyone other than themselves. And February 2013 for violating 6 provisions of the Code of Judicial Conduct in a case. Despite the official reprimands and the AG's investigation, Judge Segal calls criticism of her political, coming from the Waters campaign.
That's what this is all about, is to get negative stuff on me in order to make them win a re-election for Justice of the Peace.
And it's really up to the voters in this particular situation, for the voters to evaluate the credentials, the professional history of each of the candidates.
Late this afternoon, Judge Segal did come to the KVOA studios. She did an in-depth sit-down interview with News 4 management in which she explained her side of the story. We will have that report tomorrow night at 10. Remember, if you have a story you'd like us to investigate, email us at investigators@kvoa.com or call 955-4444. Matthew Schwartz, News 4 Tucson.